Okay, folks, we're going to start our second unit now, and the first thing that we're going to do this week is learn how to store data. So the language that we're using when we use observable notebooks is called JavaScript, which is probably the most popular language in the world, most used, and that's because it's basically the language of the web. So I'm going to show you with this lesson how to store data in an array. And then in the next one, it'll be a little bit more complicated with JavaScript objects, but not that much more so. So let's start again by going to our home page in Observable, and we'll just go ahead and create a new notebook. And remember, it comes up like this. It's already set for us, so we don't have to really worry about using HTML here. Just replace untitled with whatever you want to call your notebook. I would suggest arrays, and then you can unpin that, and we're ready to go. And so we'll make a new cell there. And arrays are for storing data. So let's say that we want to store a bunch of numbers. What you do is you put them inside square brackets like that. And then just put whatever numbers you want in there, separated with commas. So I would 2, 5, 7, 8, 1. And then just go ahead and enter that code, and you have stored those numbers in an array. And now let me unpin this and close this for a second, because it's nice how Observable displays the arrays, because you can click this triangle here and get a better look at the array. In particular, you can see the indices. So the number 2, right? So our data here is 2, 5, 7, 8, and 1. 2 is the 0th piece of data. 5 is the first piece of data. So 2 is in the 0 slot. 5 is in the first slot. 7 is in the second slot, and so forth. So that can be a little bit confusing because you're starting with 0, but that's pretty common with programming languages. Now let me just pop open this code again. Whenever you make something in Observable, it usually is not that useful unless you give it a name, because if you don't give it a name, then you can't use it later on. So why don't we just call this data? So I'm going to say data equals this. And so what I'm doing is I'm giving this collection of data a name, and I'm calling it data. So I've revised it, so I'll run the code again. And so now I have a collection called data. So let me pop that closed. And I'm going to open up now another cell just to show you something. Now that I have this array created, let's say that I want to access certain pieces of data. I can do it like this: data, which is the name of the array, and then just put square brackets like that, and then put which one you want. So if I want the 0th one, the one in the 0 spot, that should give me 2. Let's see if it does. It does. If I want the one in the first slot, that means I want 5. So I put a 1 here, and I get 5. Well, how about if I wanted to access this 8? That's the 0th, 1, 2, 3. That's in the 3rd spot. So I should get 8. And it's as simple as that. So this is how you make a data set, and this is how you access each piece of data. If you make a mistake, and let's say I want the 9th piece of data, there isn't one. So it'll just say undefined there for you. Okay? All right, I'm going to delete that cell. So frequently when I do these videos, I'll make a cell, do a little bit of work in it, show you some concepts, and then just delete it. But I do also want to show you how you can store data that's not numbers. So let's say that you want to store things that are words. In this case, names. So we'll store some superhero names. So it's the same thing, square brackets, but you can't just go like this, Batman. If it's a word instead of a number, you have to put quotes around it. And then you can go ahead, Superman, Wonder Woman, Iron Man, and so forth. You want to give it a name. All right, so here, this is a good point here. If I tried to call this data, I would get an error because I already had something with that name. All right, so you can't make something else and give it a name that something that you made previously has. So just give it something else. So we could call it heroes. So let me put that closed. I want to unpin that, right? Now I close it. Okay. So, if I take a look at it, right? Batman is the 0th one, Superman the 1st one, Wonder Woman 2nd, Iron Man 3rd. So if I pop open a cell here, heroes 2, what should that give me? 0th, 1st one, 2nd one. That should give me Wonder Woman. Heroes 0, Batman. So that's all there is to arrays, at least for now. But sometimes you want your data set is a little bit richer than this. And instead of storing just Batman for this person that's Batman, you want to store more information, like what's his secret identity, what's his sidekick, where does he live, that sort of thing. So in the next video, we'll talk about JavaScript objects, which allows us to take an individual and store more than one piece of information about them.